All right, let's answer your question and give you some good news.
Yeah, I was afraid you were going to say that.
I'm on her side, and I don't know exactly what her side is.
I think you're totally spot on with that.
I sound inept just to help you out.
It's been a rough week, thanks to your advice.
Are you a regular listener to this program?
As much as I can be.
There's your problem.
I would not ever disagree with you because you're so smart. You have a lot of answers to a lot of things.
You don't want to listen to me on the radio.
So what do I do?
I can't give you any direction.
Thank you for empowering me. I needed that.
I'm losing you, buddy. I don't know what you're trying to say.
Well, do you know somebody who does?
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
You won't see me at Vegas or the horse track throwing money around. I've got a government to support. Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. This is Look Back Friday. It's been something on the air for, what, Andrew Kruchek, 12 years now? Something along those lines. Idea we came up with some time back because I said, I get frustrated because I would like to take longer on these calls and ask more questions and just do what I can to give something that might be helpful, a thought or two, no diagnosis or no therapy. That's for the office, but at least. And we put our heads together and said, what if we took previous calls? And Andrew, he always edits them because if you'll notice, every one of these calls starts right off with the person talking. He eliminates me and my badinage at the very front of the call. The person starts. And then I listen and I take a little notes on this end and I decide, okay, I remember now why I put that call into the queue for Look Back Friday, because I wanted to comment on this or this or this or this, or I wanted to go in this direction and I didn't get a chance. There's some reason, and probably could all come under the umbrella of it's my show and I just want to talk more. So we will get to those, but as usual, every program has its opening monologue. I did an internship at the Brecksville Veterans Administration Hospital. When I was about 12, I had a neighbor, Joe Stang, who would take me to the Cleveland Indians ball game at the old Municipal Stadium. Held 80,000 people. Man, you don't get stadiums that size anymore except Ohio State and some of these big college ones. And I was so excited. We'd go up Route 21 in Ohio. And the first time I went, I looked to the left and I saw this, what looked to be a monster bunch of buildings. There's like 7 of them, and they were all huge. I said, what is that? He goes, well, that's a hospital. Hospital? What kind of hospital? Veterans Administration Hospital. Now, this was back when an awful lot of veterans, of course, were still alive from World War II. I don't want to say how far back it is. That'll give you a clue to how old I am. And I'll give you another clue. My last cake had 50 candles on it. And that was a piece I had. I was just in awe of this big, huge hospital, which, by the way, is not there anymore. Totally torn down. All of it gone. And they're putting up a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, little did I know, and you never know where life is going to take you, that I would be in graduate school and one of my internships would be at that hospital, at that VA. I worked for a year in the day hospital program, which was the guys would come, spend the day there, go through therapy, different interventions, different activities, and then they would go home or wherever it was that they lived. My supervisor said, Ray, I want you to run a group. Okay. So we selected certain guys. My first morning running the group, I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. I feel like a big-time therapist. I got 7 or 8 guys kind of sitting here. See where we're going to go with this. Well, I didn't even get to say much because there was a guy there, big, burly-looking guy with a beard and everything, clearly hostile. And he said, how old are you? And I said, 25, 20, 20. I said, 25. I was going to say 25 and a half. Make myself sound a little older. Like, with little kids. How old are you? I'm 6 and a half. Of course, you do that when you get older, too. Have you noticed that? How old are you? I'm 90 and a half. Somewhere we start using halves again. So I said, I'm 25. You ever been in prison? No, not that I can recall. Then what are you going to tell me? Now, you'd think, being a third-year graduate student, only on my second internship, that I would have been flummoxed. But I wasn't. I said, do you think that maybe because I haven't been in prison, that I might have something that would help you now that you're out? Because I've stayed out. And he was very, very receptive to what I said. See if I can imitate what he said. Yeah. Okay, well, I tried. He's operating out of a notion that is very, very prevalent in our culture. I hear it on talk shows, hear it on the radio, I hear it everywhere. It's the old walk in my shoes therapy, which is if I haven't had your experience, and keep in mind now that none of us can have the exact same experience. If you went through a divorce and I went through a divorce, our divorces are different. If I have 5 kids and you have 5 kids, I got 5 different kids than you. So it's very, very hard to have the exact same experience as somebody else. But the notion is, if you haven't walked in my shoes, what are you going to tell me? Now, the irony to that is if you took that out to its logical extension, I would not be able to practice psychology. Because as far as I know, I've never been a woman. So that's going to eliminate about 60% of my clients. I've never been in trouble with the law. So that could mean I couldn't really work with that guy that's been in jail, I never was in jail trouble with the law. I'm married to the same woman. So people who are going through a divorce or been in a divorce, what I have to offer them, I've never been divorced. I've never had a drug or alcohol problem. So anybody that would come in would have a drug or alcohol problem. How can I help you? I've never had a drug or alcohol problem. And this could go on and on and on. About the only thing I could work with is white, past middle age males who have a certain religious bent, married to the same woman with a bunch of kids. Now that would really narrow down my client base. I find that notion is thrown at people when they don't want to hear what the other person has to say. If you would commiserate with somebody, or if you would affirm, to use psychobabble, their actions, then they would want to hear what you had to say, and they wouldn't care whether you experienced what they experienced or not, because you agree with them. But someone can easily invalidate what you say if they say you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like. You haven't walked in my shoes. You tell your friend about your 22-year-old who doesn't want to have anything to do with you. And your friend has 4 kids who all love her. And she's trying to give you some advice about the 22-year-old. And you're thinking, yeah, that's easy for her to say. But, she hasn't experienced that. She doesn't know what it's like emotionally. The irony to that notion is that if I were to walk in your shoes, it might make me less helpful to you. Example, your marriage is in trouble. You don't want a divorce. You go to a therapist who is on the edge of divorce. So they're kind of in the same boat you are. However, they've also had 2 other divorces. So using that logic, they really know a lot about being in divorce situations and all the complications that can involve. Is that what you would want? Do you think this person would be more or less likely to help you persevere in this unhappy marriage? If I've had trouble with drugs and alcohol, would I be more or less able to help you with your drugs and alcohol? Now, assuming I'm clean, how long have I been clean? I've seen drug and alcohol people relapse. What might it be? What is it about my personality that led me to be trapped by drugs and alcohol for all those years? You know, I didn't get rid of my personality. I may have gotten rid of the drugs and alcohol, but I didn't get rid of my personality and how I look at things. That's a slow process. So maybe the fact that you're struggling with drugs and alcohol and I struggled with drugs and alcohol might not be so helpful to you because, well, I got stunted in my development there for 12 years before I became clean. Now, I'm not saying don't go to drug and alcohol counselors. I'm not saying that. I respect a lot of their knowledge. I'm just simply saying this idea that you have to experience what I experienced to be most helpful to me is just a major fallacy. Don't go to a priest. He's never been married. He doesn't have any kids. Chances are the poor guy lives alone in the rectory. So how's he going to help you, huh? Yeah, that is an idea that is so widespread in our culture, and it is just so misleading. So there you have it. Besides, you people call in and you tell me what's wrong with my radio show. I could write back, you know. I could say, have you ever had a radio show? Then what are you doing to tell me? But instead, I have to assess it and see, do they have a point? Because they could be wise about all kinds of things, even if they didn't have a radio show. Dr. Ray. A little bit of ragtime. Thank you for joining me here. I better jump on a call quickly. This is from Canada. Nathan, calling from Canada. Eh? Apparently your kid's a pretty good kid, right? Or you rather have him hang around the house?
Well, he's a fantastic kid. He is he's on fire for Jesus. He's hardworking. He's 19 years old. He's thinking about getting married.
Wow.
Even to the point of we have my other 2 kids have moved out. We've got a large house. Even to the point if they were to get married, to correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not sure, but traditional societies with extended family living together. He's saving all of his money for his future. I'm not saying that, you know, at a certain point, if he to go out and to go on to do his own thing, but it's he's working in the family business. We spend a lot of time together. Yeah, he's a pleasure to have around. And
why does he want to leave?
Nathan,
why does he want to leave?
He's not. I'm just questioning. I've heard a fair amount just listening to your program about, you know, kids. My question is, given that there's no disharmony, to the contrary, there's a lot of harmony, do you think it's a bad idea that he would just continue living at home, even to the point as a newlywed?
No. I've often said, for parents to make that decision, it really always it comes down to what they see as the well-being of the young adult. Many of the people who are frustrated with their kids living at home at age 20, 22, 25, 30 is because they're uncooperative or they're disrespectful or they're drifting or they're showing no motive to become independent. But I've often said my son stayed at home till he was 26. He was in college. He was a pleasant young man, very cooperative, very respectful. I loved having him there. My daughter was just there. She finally moved out. She was 26. So, no, I don't see that as automatic that because you're a certain age you got to go. Although some people do say that, and that's their decision as parents. They say, it's time for you to go. Even though you're a wonderful human being and I love having you around, time for you to be independent. But in your case, if you're saying, this is a great kid, it's financially helping him out, it doesn't sound like you're too nervous about him wanting to get married at age 19. I don't know how long he's known this young lady. But
they actually have their 1.5-year anniversary today.
Okay.
I got married at 35, and, I didn't convert to Jesus as my Savior until I was 33. My advice to my kids is to get married younger, have kids younger.
And that used to be more common not so long ago in our Western culture. That's true. The marriage age now, if they do get married, the marriage age now is really creeping up. It's moving towards 30. So you're right. That is a situation, and of course that has direct effects on children and how many you can welcome from God. If your son wants to stay there, and in fact, if you say, we got a great place for you and your wife to stay, we love having you, all the more power to you, my friend. I think if you're asking, is there any kind of socially stunting going on if we do that, I don't think so. Why would there be?
Well, that's great to have that affirmed. Thank you.
Sure. I don't think it needed affirmed. I've always been pretty clear about that, which is it comes down to the level of cooperation, the level of forward movement on the part of the young adult. That's what it comes down. My son, Andrew, lived with us till he was 26, till he got married. He was working. He was getting his master's in engineering. He was incredibly cooperative and pleasant around. I liked having him there. But then he went and got married. Oh, boy. He did give us some grandkids, though. On the other hand, I had a couple kids that we had to put some conditions on their living there because they seemed to think that just because they turned 18 and the state said they're adults now, that because of that, mom and pop are going to say, well, okay, come and go as you please, do what you want. That's not going to happen. So that said, interestingly, I guess I can probably do a little self-revelation here. They used to tell us that, in therapy school, there's times to reveal parts about your own personality in therapy if you think that would be helpful to the person forming the therapeutic bond. Well, this would be a radio bond. Ray Bond. I married when I was 31. And I, up until 20, well, how old was I? 26. 25, 26. When I graduated from grad school. At that time, pretty much, I lived up in college, came home periodically on weekends, those kinds of things. But even after that, once I graduated, I worked in Lisbon, Ohio, and we worked back-to-back 12-hour days. So 3 days of the week, I stayed down there. My base of operations was home. My parents were Italian, so the firstborn male child in any Italian family, hey, heck, we could just hang around there forever. So I did. Came in and out. There were many, many times that I slept in the mental health center. I'd stay overnight in the mental health center. We had places, we had couches. I slept there. I was a vagabond. I was truly a vagabond. I slept, for example, it wasn't unusual for friends that I knew that I would show up on their screened-in porch, sleep on their recliner, and they'd come out and see me there. I I traveled. I went all over the place. My base of operations was still home until I got married, but I wasn't there all that much. I just kind of meandered. I guess you could say I was a free spirit, but it was more or less, where am I going to stay? I remember multiple times I stayed with a woman named Frida, dear lady. I called her Mom Schweitzer. And I stayed at her house 2-3 nights a week because I worked back-to-back 12 hours, and it made no sense to drive the 1 hour home, get up in the morning, and drive 1 hour back. So I stayed there. I had my own room at Frida's. I stayed there. Did that for 3-4 years. There were times when I rented a hotel by the week. And at that time, just to go to show you how long ago this was, it wasn't really a hotel. It was a motel, one of those strip motels. $10 a night. Now, there was no water or showers or toilet. No, there was. But that's what I did, wherever I could land my head. I had dear friends. I consulted to the schools. So I had dear friends who were principals at various schools in Salem. I'd stay at their house. I'd call them up. I'd say, hey, guys, I'm in town tonight. You got a couch? Yeah, Ray, come on, show up. And I'd go. Rob's house and Louie's house, they both went on to be superintendents. They both are long since retired. But I enjoyed being with them. I made a lot of good friends that I mooched off of. And, of course, I invited them to my wedding, and they were probably very relieved that I was getting married because, well, they really didn't have to worry about me showing up at their place anymore. And at that time, I owned a duplex, so I finally moved into my duplex with my wife and had a home. I was 31. And my parents didn't mind me at home because I was working for quite a bit of it. I was going to school. I was making money. You know what? They should have charged me some rent, though. They really should. They didn't. They were sweet about it. They wanted me to save. So I did. I did save. As long as I was saving, I think they were content. A little bit of self-revelation there about me being a bum. Am I delusional or what?
No, you're probably spot on.
Oh, Andrew, this is going to be close if I try to get this one in. About a 6-minute. Yeah, it's going to take me close to the break, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of look back after I look ahead to the break and then look back after the break. But Ann from Maryland had some questions, as is common nowadays from grandparents, about her granddaughter's conduct.
Daughter and her husband are having a lot of trouble with the 19-year-old. The girl has health problems and emotional problems. They put her in a special program, 504, whatever they call that thing.
Yeah, that's and special ed in schools.
She did graduate. Yeah, she did graduate slowly, but she did make it. And it was an special independent program that gave her a lot of leeway. Bottom line is she's 19. She can drive. She's smart, but she has a lot of problems. She refuses to go to church, and that's been for a couple of years, which I never would have put up with, but, they're trying to work with her. And they understand that she's, considered an adult, but they have house rules because she lives there. And I think a lot of their attitude is very good and right on. But the other day, she took the car, which she has access to, which she's allowed to take, and especially when she'll be using it to go to school, hopefully. She did not come home on time, 7 p.m. She wound up at the beach until 11 p.m. at night. They know that because they have tracker on her phone. Stayed there. Turns out she's probably with a guy, and but they've never met this guy. They never heard that she even had a friend. And when she's confronted, she cries and screams and carries on like somebody's killing her. They don't understand her. They're horrible parents. It's just a mess. I'm like,
Ann, how do you know all this? Ann, how do you know all this?
They're very close to the family. They tell me. They talk to me about it.
And are they saying we don't know what to do? We're at our wits' end?
Well, one thing is my son-in-law is controlling his temper. He's really done a magnificent job. They've been married 23 years. Magnificent job. He's a staunch, great convert. He's a lector. He does all kinds of good things at church. My daughters, she makes sure that, the kids have had the CCD and all of the good training. They're Catholics. Would I be wrong in saying,
Ann, that this is nothing new? She's been a handful for them for a while.
Absolutely. Her whole life, she's been a handful. And now
can I also say,
a couple of years, go ahead.
All righty, my dear. Can I also say that they have when you mentioned that she was in 504, which is a designation for special education classes, that they gave her leeway.
Health and emotional problems.
Right. They gave her leeway because of her health and emotional problems. Therefore, they allowed a lot of stuff, and it's now getting ugly.
It is very ugly because she's not, and from time to time, she has not obeyed the curfews. In fact, the reason she had a 7 p.m. curfew is because the week before she didn't make her 8 p.m. curfew.
Well, you said something interesting, my dear. You said something interesting. You just kind of said it in passing. But my spidey senses picked up on it immediately.
I love it.
You said, well, she takes the car because she has access to the car. Now, hold on a second. Why does she have access to the car? If she's not following house rules, why does she have access to a car? You don't have to answer that. I'm asking it rhetorically.
Yeah.
But that tells me that they are nervous, reluctant, worried about actually setting some limits on this young lady, even though she's 19, which doesn't mean anything because mature-wise she's probably 14. So given that, she's legally an adult, and her attitude is probably, I'm an adult, I can do what I want. And so they're skittish. They're very skittish about actually drawing a line. Then you said something else, Ann, here. You said your son-in-law, beautiful man, very good father, etc., and I'm going to speculate. You tell me I'm wrong, and if you tell me I'm wrong, I'm going to hang up on you because I don't think I'm wrong. Which is that
you're never wrong.
Your daughter has been more tolerant of a lot of this conduct, and your son-in-law would like to do more about it, but he's trying to keep the peace. Okay, tell me I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right.
I knew it. They're going to be forced to make some tough decisions because it sounds like she's more and more saying, I don't want to follow your rules. I want to do what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And mom feels betrayed. Mom's attitude is, after all we've done for you, after all we've tolerated this, after all we've done, and now you turn on us like this. So that's where mom, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, mm-hmm. the adage goes. So mom's had her limit. Mm-hmm. Dad's seen it coming. So given all that, let me suggest a book to you. It's called Standing Strong. Good Discipline Makes Great Teens. It's got a lot of stuff in there on how to bring control with an older child. Where do I go with this? First of all, let me make a couple of umbrella observations. Never before, and I believe the ingredients are particularly unique to our culture, even more so than what you might call Western culture. Never before have so many young adults been so out of control, so foolishly making decisions, so anxious, so nervous, so depressed. In other words, they're not well wrapped. And there's a lot of factors in this. But one of the big ones, big ones, is that the culture is no longer the village. It's no longer the clan. It's no longer the tribe. It is the culture at large. And the culture at large comes at these young people with their attitudes, with their ideas, with their anti-religion. All of these things that shape a lot of these kids. And when you have a vulnerable kid, like it sounds like this young lady, and she alluded to health problems and mental problems, but again, I didn't have time to explore what she meant by mental problems, which can be code word for she was really tough to raise. And she was a major behavior problem, or she was defiant, or she had emotional struggles of some type. And those are often called mental health issues when in fact they are probably better considered social, behavioral, get along with life and parents issues. And I knew this was going to happen. That break is telling me, please be quiet. But it's not saying that with any flexibility. It's basically saying, shut up, Raymond, because you have no choice. I'll talk a little bit more about this on the other side.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. New polling from Pew Research pegs the strong divide in America over abortion at roughly 39 to 23. 39% attribute personhood to a child at conception, most of whom say all or most abortions should be illegal. 23% say abortion should always be legal. While Americans remain largely ignorant over chemical abortion, over 25% want abortion pills illegal in their state. New law in Puerto Rico affirms that babies are not medical waste, particularly when a parent formally requests their release. The law affirms the dignity of every human life and respects the needs of grieving parents. This fall, the University of Oregon will join a rapidly expanding list of colleges across the country offering abortion pills to students. One critic says that dispensing the abortion pill on campus is the same as pressuring a woman to have an abortion. This is Life News Radio. If you or someone you love is hurting after abortion, this is for you. A Rachel's Vineyard retreat is therapy for the soul. Many participants who have been trapped in anger toward themselves and others experience forgiveness. Peace is found, lives restored, a sense of hope and meaning for the future is finally rediscovered. Visit rachelsvineyard.org or call 877-HOPE-4-ME. A confusing mess in Tennessee imperils a state abortion ban. Legislators are rewriting a novel appeals process in the state so its abortion ban can take hold. They say the appeals process was designed to prevent government overreach, but abortion lawsuits are using loopholes to go beyond what had been anticipated. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Okay. Got a call from Ann before the last break. Well, I didn't get the call. It was a replay of the call. Granddaughter, 19 years old, giving parents all kinds of trouble, acting irresponsibly, out of control, etc., etc. And I was making the observation that in my belief, never before have so many young adults been out of control. Substance abuse, alcohol abuse, profligate sexuality, you name it, defiance of parents. Some weeks ago, I did an opening monologue on parental estrangement. There was a therapist there who came from Benin some many years ago. It's an African country. She made the observation that the level of estrangement, the level of essentially family difficulties experienced in America, and it was a poll that was done. It was a YouGov poll. They found that 1 in 4 adults is estranged from a family member. 1 in 4. She said in Benin, that is almost completely unheard of. As, and she said this, as is the rest of Africa. Almost completely unheard of. Now, why would this be? What is it about American culture that is making these kids, as they become young adults, so difficult and making such bad decisions about life? Obviously, no simple answers. But you've got a culture that essentially says, I don't know so much about God. So you got 40% in recent surveys that those under 30 declare no religion whatsoever. So once you got that, once you don't have God's morals saying this is good way to live, you do your own thing. That's one. Two, we are an enormously materially wealthy culture. No culture in the history of the world has ever been as remotely close to us in wealth as we are now. Our poor people, according to the way the government establishes poverty, live better than, in many measures, than the average middle-class person in Europe or Japan. We're very, very materially well off. We think we're not because we look at it and go, well, yeah, but, things are expensive and this is terrible and this is awful. Yeah, but we have much materially, and that trickles down to our kids. When you have that kind of materialism, you become dissatisfied, disenchanted, and you seek pleasures. We're very hedonistic. We don't really grow up anymore having to go milk cows, having to walk everywhere we went. My grandparents all walked everywhere they went. My grandfather, he worked 3 miles from home every day, no matter what the weather, no matter the rain, sleet, cold, bitterness, minus 30-degree wind chill. He walked back, all four of my grandparents. And that was not unusual for that generation. So as a result, when you raise kids in a very soft kind of environment, which is natural because of the way we live technologically, materially, and opportunity-wise, they can become disenchanted. They've done surveys of various cultures and said, rate your level of contentment. The U.S. is down toward the bottom. Undeveloped countries are up toward the top in level of life satisfaction and contentment. How is that? Because it's a gap between what we have and what we want to have. And as that gap gets bigger, young people are more and more disenchanted. This young lady who is doing all kinds of things with her freedom, one, doesn't seem to be guided by the morals she was raised with. Now, how did that happen? Most of the time, when you were raised with certain morals, you stayed with those morals, at least in human history. Well, now we got a culture that can say, no, those morals are not cool. Watch anything on TV, anything on the movies, pretty much anything. The majority is, live this way. This is the way to do it. What, married? To have physical relations? Are you crazy? What are you talking about? That's a throwback, man. And all of that has a net effect. And it affects a higher percentage of our kids. Not all of them. Not all of them. Everybody's wired different. Some people absorb parenting much better than their siblings. It seems that some young people, the way they're wired, it just bounces off them. So all of this enters in. I deal with this constantly in my office. Parents coming in. My 22-year-old's doing this. My 24-year-old's doing this. We had to kick out my 19-year-old because he's this, and we haven't heard from him in 2 years. That is just routine now. It's not even an outlier. It's not something that, oh boy, well, that just doesn't happen very often, does it? No. This is becoming a trend. Well, it isn't becoming. It is a trend. And you're forced in situations to, in many respects, stand idly by and watch and see what happens and get ready to pick up the pieces. I know that doesn't sound too good, but in many cases, you got no other option. So I got to cut it off there. I'm looking at the clock. I want to get one more call in before we close up shop. This is Dr. Ray. All right, I better jump on it. No persiflage, no matter how magniloquent. Teresa from Ohio is experiencing something that is, again, something that's really been quite unusual the last, say, maybe 8-10 years in our culture. But my, that level of intolerance for other people's perspective.
I've been walking with a neighbor who doesn't agree with me politically or religiously, and she brings up things, I want to say almost digs. She brings up things that are not very nice, and I try to change the subject, and I go on, and I ignore, and it, and there are times when it's wonderful, and there are times when she does kind things for me, and I was just trying, I did keep going along with it, and recently we walked, and she mentioned Trump, which led to, and I tried to ignore again and change. It did. She was adamant, and it, wow. And then Charlie Kirk, and to make it short, basically she was happy. She had a smirk on her face, and I was just like, oh, "You're glad he was killed? He was a 31-year-old, vibrant, healthy father." I just was just.
So you're walking, Teresa, you're walking with a lady who was glad someone was murdered.
See, that's what I'm saying. Well, I don't know what to do. She's like, and then she realized I was just, my heart was beating. I was so upset. She knows I'm Catholic, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then it's like, I keep saying, "Okay, Lord, Jesus said, forgive, 70-something." I'm like, but she actually was glad that he was shot, and she was almost basically telling me that she wished Trump would have been killed. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Oh, like, I know what I would do. I know what I would do.
Okay.
I'd quit walking with her.
Okay.
Why? Why walk with somebody who not only is negative about what you believe, I can understand that. Okay, she doesn't agree with you. Okay, got it.
Right.
But to take pot shots at you and then say things that she has to know would shock you to your core. She has to know that when she reveled in somebody's death, especially somebody who, in many respects, no matter what you think of his viewpoints, in many respects, he tried to bring about some kind of dialogue and was clear in his Christian walk, even though he acknowledged what a sinner he was. So, given that, she's basically saying to you, not only do I not agree with you, Teresa, but I think it's within my domain to fire off, put down remarks about how you think, about the most central things in your life. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, because she's made one even like dig against the Catholic faith, and then basically with this Charlie Kirk thing, she was saying he kind of asked for it. He was a propagandist. He was. I did not know she was that far gone. I thought maybe if I was doing the Christian thing and showing her how happy I am as a Catholic, that it would. It's not rubbing off. She's no. I don't. I'm.
How long have you walked?
Why is she?
How long have you walked with her?
I'm sorry.
How long have
Probably
you walked?
about 3 years. My husband passed away. I'm the one that called in earlier a while ago about is faith enough? And
so you're finding out what she thinks when events and people become more apparent in our existence. So in other words, you would not have known that her attitude could be, I would be celebrating somebody's death who I think not only disagrees with me, but is a quote-unquote dangerous individual for the beliefs that he has, right?
Yeah, I'm shocked.
I'm not.
Why? She's apologizing to me.
No.
She's apologizing to me. Why is she apologizing to me? I'm like, I realize she doesn't respect me, right?
Well, I got a question for you. What if you said to her, I think I'm just going to walk by myself. I think that given your attitude toward me and toward what I most deeply believe in, and given the idea that you could actually celebrate someone being killed, I think it's best that we just go our separate ways.
Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to hear that I think she crossed the line here.
Oh, well, she didn't cross the line. She just slipped. She slipped, and she told
like, yeah,
you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's like I shouldn't. But she's not sorry for her thought about that. She's sorry that it slipped out.
I just can't believe people feel that way.
Oh, I can.
Wow.
I can. Wow. I have seen how in the last 20, 30, 40 years in our culture, the relentless onslaught of the media, of Hollywood, of, in many respects, our educational institutions, and now most viciously social media, has misshapen so many people in the way they look at things. And there is a percentage of them who now believe that if you have certain thoughts and ideas that not only they disagree with, but that they think are harmful and vicious and bigoted and whatever, then it is perfectly acceptable. Matter of fact, it is good, to use a value judgment word, that you don't exist. Saw a survey. They talked to people who consider themselves conservative, how they self-defined it, and liberal, how they self-defined it. And what they found was conservatives are far more likely to have friends who think unlike them than those who call themselves liberal are likely to have friends who don't think like them. Which I find fascinating, because I would imagine that this woman who walks with Teresa considers herself a very open-minded individual, and that's kind of why she's so angry at guys like Charlie Kirk and President Trump, because they're just bad people, and she considers them not open-minded like she is, but yet at the same time she exudes intolerance. Teresa, how dare you think the way you think? And I would almost want to say to her, why would you even want to walk with me if you think the way you do about my religion, about my views on life? And there's no doubt in my mind, and I've run across this so many times, there's no doubt in my mind that this woman is spouting cliches. If you actually asked her how she formed her opinions, she probably couldn't defend them. Now, why do you say this, Dr. Ray? Because I've done it. I've asked people, how did you come to that conclusion? And they can't defend it. What they give you is just cliches, stereotypical thinking. Facts mean nothing at all. If you say, well, this is the fact about this according to this, they just look at you like, so? It's a fascinating dynamic. It's a fascinating psychological dynamic, and I've just watched the bitterness and resentment overwhelm tolerant, reasonable thinking. Oh, okay. Well, you be tolerant, you be reasonable, and you walk with God, because He is.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.